Hi everyone, welcome to Heartbeat Narratives. I'm your host Molly Mamaril, and this is our first episode. I really wanted to kick off 2025 by launching this podcast, and it's going to be all about the people, places, and passions that we love. And essentially, I felt that this platform would be a fun space to have lighthearted conversations about what brings people joy, about what makes them tick, what they're constantly thinking about or obsessing about, almost as an antidote to everything else in the news. So hopefully Heartbeat Narratives will bring you a little oasis of peace. Maybe it'll be funny, and it could even help build empathy with the people in our lives, because every single person has a story and every single person has something that they love, whether it is a person, a place, or a hobby. This podcast will be based here in Honolulu. I live in the neighborhood of Kaimuki, and I'll just be interviewing people from Hawaii and all over. And some of the interviewees will be friends, acquaintances, people that I meet out and about, connections, or even people while I'm traveling. And I think that's kind of the variety and fun of life, is that you never know what types of conversations you will have when you are out in the community. And I think that's kind of the fun part of everything is, you come home and maybe you had an interaction at the grocery store where you're like, man, I met this amazing woman in the cereal aisle. She dropped her purse and I helped her pick it up. And then we talked about her granddaughter who's coming over for the holidays and how she hasn't seen her in 3 years. And those kinds of conversations just spiral into this, meaningful interaction that oftentimes we remember. And so with these stories, my hope is that you'll start to see the value in everyone else's experience and possibly even see that value within your own experience, that you also have a story and that you have inherent value. And sharing that openly can really unlock relationships, doors, connections. And I think that's something that maybe we've lost because we're always hiding behind screens, TVs, phones, and so forth. But if we genuinely just have conversations with people, I think something beautiful can come out of that type of face-to-face connection. As a little bit of background, I was born here in Honolulu. When I was 3, my parents moved our family to Minnesota because my younger brother was about to be born. My dad is from Maui and my mom is from Minnesota, and they met at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. I lived in Minnesota for most of my life and I had a great childhood, loved the 4 seasons, but there was always this yearning to come back to Hawaii. I felt like I didn't understand the connection to my Hawaiian heritage, my Filipino heritage, and it felt like there was this missing piece in me that I hadn't yet explored, and that there was this hole that I needed to fill with new experiences and knowledge and connection with my father's side of the family. And I was able to experience my mom's side of the family, German, Irish, Scandinavian, in the Midwest. And so exploring these 2 sides of my identity have been a lifelong journey, and I'm still going through it. But in 2012, right when I graduated from college, I decided that I would move to Hawaii and, fill that side of me that I'd been so curious about. And so I told my parents that I was moving to Hawaii, just like my mom had done when she went to grad school in the late 70s. I told my parents that I was going to surf and work at a coffee shop and just kind of wing it. And they're like, okay, hold on. How about you have some kind of foundation? Maybe enroll in school so that you have a network around you. You're learning something, you're maybe working towards a degree. So I decided to study natural resources and environmental management, the NREM program at UH. And my undergrad was in journalism. So I decided that those two combined would be a great way to become an environmental writer. And so I went into the NREM program, got really into malama work, which is caring for the land, and starting to see and experience conservation in Hawaii and Hawaiian culture in Hawaii. And that really connected me to this whole new worldview, this worldview that is grounded in oral storytelling. I was so fascinated by that and how powerful the stories of specific places can be. Because the more that you know about a specific place, especially here in Hawaii, the more you can understand the energy that comes with that place, the people who are from that place, the foods, the winds, the waters. When you observe or kilo that place, you start to see patterns, and I just felt like, what more could life be than to understand the stories of places and the stories of the people? These are sort of the threads that have brought me to this place to launch a podcast about storytelling. And kind of in that same vein, when I was growing up, I remember seeing hula dancing for the first time. And I was at a summer program for kids with indigenous heritage, indigenous roots. And there were students from across the continental US, from Hawaii, from Alaska, from different tribes and communities. I felt like I didn't really fit in because I'd grown up in such a Western society, being in Minnesota, especially in an urban, suburban environment. And there were students from Hawaii. We were all about 16 to 18 years old. And when I saw these girls dancing, it was like something inside of me clicked. And they were essentially telling stories through movement, through their bodies. And I had this intense desire to just learn hula. It felt like this overpowering curiosity and need to learn about hula and dance. And so I went back to Minnesota. This program had been in California. And I found a hula halau, or a hula school, in the Twin Cities. And I danced for 6 years with that halau. And we had a beautiful sisterhood of women of all ages. It started to connect me to my Hawaiian heritage again, more than just coming to family reunions on Maui or coming here on vacation and doing the touristy things. And so that experience of dancing hula and learning oli, chant, or songs, mele, I just started to realize that this has to be part of me. Storytelling will always be part of my life in some form. And yeah, so these are just sort of the things that have woven together to bring me to this place. Another element that I wanted to bring in as part of this intro was that both of my parents are librarians. My mom has always wanted to write a book about, I think she wanted to call it, Who Are These People? Who are the everyday people that make up our neighborhoods and communities that help society function? Whether it's bus drivers or school principals, people who work at our grocery stores, all of the people that maybe we overlook because they're such a part of our fabric of our community. She thought that if we dove into the personal side of the people that we see every day, that could really bring forth a different kind of conversation and knowing of who our neighbors are. That has stuck with me for all of these years. We never wrote the book, but this podcast is in a way of telling the stories of the people in our lives and valuing their experiences. I find it really important that this podcast highlight everybody and not just people with status or title, but really serve as an equalizer, that all of our experiences matter, that your story matters. And one of the ways that I'm going to try to integrate that equal footing is by just including everyone's first name in the title. And if they're comfortable with me using their last name, that would be in the description. We all have this identity through our names that without the title of Doctor or Mr. or Mrs. and so forth, we are just us. And that's an intentional decision on my part. So if you see people's names and last names, the last names will be in the description if they're comfortable with me using it. But I wanted everyone to be able to speak candidly about what brings them joy. And so this is a lighthearted, kind of fun way to do that. And to do my due diligence, since I will be asking everybody else what brings them joy, I thought that I would share why podcasting brings me joy, why this makes my heart beat, why this makes me tick. And my love for podcasting started in 2021. And this was, a year into COVID. I'd been listening to tons of podcasts during the pandemic, mostly things about pop culture and TV shows that I liked, like really, really unimportant, but gave me a break when I was going on my walks and my runs. And I really loved the format of just audio. And I've always loved National Public Radio, NPR, and hearing the richness in people's voices without a visual element. And I find it comforting, and I find it a way of just tuning into one sense. In 2021, I had been at my current nonprofit for about a year, and my mentor and boss, our CEO, Uncle Pono Shim, was a natural storyteller. He had the power to create peace in a room that was very contentious just by telling a story. He had this incredible gift of finding the lōkahi, which is a Hawaiian word that could be translated to mean unity. He could find that unity or common ground between all of the people in the room that created a sense of peace and shared values. Sometimes that would be playing a song that captured the spirit of a place or the spirit of what he was trying to convey. And just by starting a meeting with that song or a specific story, it could quiet the tension and people would start to self-regulate and not bring that anger or negative feeling forward into the wider discussion. It was so incredible to just see people self-regulate without being told what to do. And that was his Aloha response. And he was gifted with the Aloha teachings through his own genealogy, through his great aunt, Auntie Pilahi Paki. And she was known as Hawaii's Keeper of Secrets, author of the Aloha Spirit Law, which guides Hawaii government still today. I believe that was written in the 80s. And it's a way of falling back on the values of aloha, akahai, lōkahi, olu olu, ha'a ha'a, and aho nui in government decision making. But the Aloha Spirit Law can be so much greater than that. It doesn't just apply to government and lawmakers, but it can be applied to everyday lives and the big and small decisions that we find ourselves making. And so you can find that in the Hawaii Revised Statutes if you want to lean on that resource. We started recording his stories of aloha, specific moments that he had with people where it shifted the conversation by bringing that pleasantness or humility or emptiness in the sense of like not coming with an agenda. Those types of values can really shift the way you relate to one another and the decisions that you make. Just by putting a microphone in front of him, I learned so much. And I was really very shy about speaking, but he let me be the co-host. And I had kind of been nerding out on podcasting and had wanted to start one. It was the perfect opportunity to do so at work. And I remember him asking me at the beginning, what is a podcast? And that people had been requesting that he start one because they wanted to hear more of his stories. And this was coming from people who had heard him speak or were part of the Aloha response cohorts that he had begun. I told him that podcasting was kind of like NPR and that audio platform of documentation. And he laughed and was like, okay, yeah, we can do that. And he gave me the go-ahead to buy a microphone, and I just started pulling it out different days, and he would choose a story to share. I learned a lot about storytelling in that year or so that we were doing Above the Sides. And since his passing, I've made the decision to continue with Above the Sides at work and interview other people who bring aloha into their personal and professional lives in all sectors of our economy, because our nonprofit is an economic development organization. Through these conversations, I've learned how much I love interviewing people and getting into the nitty-gritty of their lives and their work. It's an excuse to get to know people on a deeper level, because some of these questions and topics don't come up when you're just making small talk, running into each other in downtown Honolulu. But when you sit down for 45 minutes to an hour, you can really get into some beautiful conversation. And those relationships and deeper connections have really brought me joy. I've just found that I'm completely hooked. It's something I want to continue doing. And this Heartbeat Narratives podcast is that next step in that direction for me. So mahalo. Thank you for tuning in. I hope that you find this to be interesting and fun, and I appreciate all of you coming to check this out. So cheers to just going for it and starting this up. I've been wanting to do this for over a year, so let's get to it. Thank you.